SABC News correspondent William Denselow is in Paris for us, coming to us live there from central Paris. William, there is certainly a tension in the air about what the outcomes of this will be, with Macron and the Renaissance Party facing pressure both from the far right and the far left. Marine Le Pen making inroads, very serious inroads, having performed well in polls in the lead up to this. What is the sentiment from French voters that you've been able to speak to this hour?
Well, there's certainly been a scramble here in France and here in Paris, where all eyes should have been on the Olympics that's less than a month away. But officials have had to pivot 3 weeks ago when French President Emmanuel Macron, as you rightly said, Oliver, decided to call that snap election following that European election result, where his Renaissance Party suffered a really bruising evening when it came to the results in the European elections. That means that over the last 3 weeks there's been a really hurried effort to campaign to try and get the vote out for the respective parties. I've spoken to a few of Emmanuel Macron's supporters who say that they are surprised by the move, that it hadn't given the Renaissance base enough time to mobilise. Some of his supporters have said that has handed a huge advantage to the National Rally, coming off that incredibly successful performance that they saw in the European elections. And when it comes to the turnout, well, what we're hearing from election officials here at this polling station behind me, they're saying that this is the highest turnout they've seen in recent memory. And across the country, statistics released by the government indicate much the same, that we are seeing a huge voter turnout in an election that analysts say could be the most consequential in France since the 1950s.
Yep. How indicative and how strong of a litmus test are the EU polls? They take place quite regularly, and the far right in France have had representation in the EU Parliament. It wouldn't be the first time that they've had representation. Of course, this time around they have greater representation than before. How strong of a litmus test is that EU election on what could be the outcome in the parliamentary election taking place right now?
Well, the European elections are very interesting across the EU bloc. For many people, it's an opportunity to essentially offer a rebuke to their local domestic leaders. For others, it's an opportunity to have a say on how they want to see the bloc's policies going forward. So both need to be taken into consideration. And what we saw here in France was that the National Rally performed incredibly strongly indeed, winning over 30% of France's proportion of members of the European Parliament. That was twice as many or so as Emmanuel Macron's centrist Renaissance Party. Off the back of that election, Emmanuel Macron said to the French people, I'm going to give you the choice. That choice is whether those same policies that the National Rally stand for, anti-immigration, as a major campaign policy, whether the French people want to see those kind of policies at the national level as well as the European Union level. So that'll be incredibly fascinating to find out when we see the conclusion not only of these polls this weekend, but after the runoff on July 7th too.
Yeah. William, thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it. William Denselow, SABC correspondent, coming to us from central Paris.